All right, so Medicare Part A, we've got over here, first little Sunday break. Medicare Part A, it covers your hospital stays. Things like your care of your room and board while in the hospital. Skilled nursing, it covers medications while you're in the hospital that you're given while you're in hospital, things like that. The premium for Medicare Part A is typically $0. It's not free. Does anyone know why it's not considered free? You've been paying into it your whole working life. So as long as you've worked enough, you don't need to pay any premium for Medicare Part A. It is $0. All right. Medicare Part A also has a deductible. Unlike most deductibles, the Part A deductible is a per event deductible. So that means anytime there is an event that you wind up in the hospital, you would have to pay the $1,556 for each event that leads you lands you in the hospital. I know you look at your face, you're like, oh goodness. It is. It can be a lot if you wind up in the hospital a lot. So, and that is from days 1 to 60. Days 61 through 90, you'll be paying $389 per day. All right. As I said, Medicare Part A covers skilled nursing care, but it does not cover long-term care. Do you know the difference between skilled nursing and long-term care? Skilled nursing is when you're basically in a rehab facility trying to get better. The doctors are trying to make you better and get you back home. Long-term care is basically end of life. They're just keeping you comfortable until your time comes. Okay. Any questions on Part A? We good? Okay. Medicare Part B. Got our other little cinder brick right here. Medicare Part B covers most of your medical needs. This is going to cover your doctor, your doctor, outpatient procedures, your lab tests, and things of that nature. The monthly premium on Medicare Part B is typically $170.10. That is for this year. Your premium could be more depending on how much money you make. If you make a lot amount of money, it's called that's your income related monthly adjusted amount. There we go. And we won't really get into that so much, but there's a little sheet on that later in the booklet for you to look at. And there is an annual deductible on Medicare Part B, and this year that is $233.
So I get people on occasion look and go, $170? That's outrageous. Folks that say that really have no clue what medical care costs. I would almost bet, if I went around the room, I ask each of you, do you know somebody who got a major medical event? How much did it cost? I've had clients that had $2 million in a single year. Constantly having about $500 million per event. So the idea that $170, by the way, you're paying $170, which is again is the standard rate for this. Well, this. And remember that, because I asked that question later. 107 is the premium. 233 is the deductible. My deductible was $7,000 on Obamacare. My premium was $2,000. I'm thrilled to death to pay $170. I'm like doing my happy dance. I get excited when my bill comes now. And where I used to go, oh no, here we go again. The government is paying out on average over $1,000 per month per Medicare beneficiary. Think about that for a minute. 65 million Medicare beneficiaries, and it's costing the government $1,000 a month on average to take care of it. So getting out of this at 170, thereabouts, depending on your situation, that's a bargain. the average cost of a stay in a hospital, and again, she mentioned a little while ago, this is Tom Bodette. Now, remember Tom Bodette? We're going to leave the lights on for you. This is room and board. Just the room and board's over, on average, in Indiana, over $2,200 a month. And that's not including the doctor going by and go, well, hi, Jen, how you doing? See, well, that was an extra $75 right there. You just went, that's all you did. He charged you for it. So it's quite a bargain. From my perspective, it's quite a bargain. Okay, let's move along. So let's talk about drugs. Go to the next page. And it looks like that. So there are 4 phases to every drug plan, whether it's a drug plan and a Medicare Advantage or it's a standalone drug plan. They're all, government makes these rules, they set the bar. Everybody's got to play inside these sandboxes, okay? First stage is a deductible. Now, because it says it's got a deductible of $480, write 505 next to that. That's one number I remember for next year. It's going to be the deductible for next year is 505.
So it's caught up.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, I remember when they were only about $200. So, that was a long time. It's back when I got my car at $3,900. So now they reclaim those out. Many of your Medicare Advantage plans particularly are 0 deductible. Now, if you've known somebody has some expensive drugs and they're going, it's like a roller coaster, it's because they probably have a big deductible. So that first month they pay a lot. Then the next several months, whatever drugs they had, it comes down to a little more reasonable. That's when they're going into that copay phase after that. Some of the plans that don't have a deductible, that makes it a little bit easier to track and to manage. But deductible, well, there's 23 different drug plans in central Indiana. Out of the 23, 19 of them have a deductible. They're not all 480. Might be 300, might be 250, might be 200. Unfortunately, the vast majority of them have the $480 deductible this year. And only 4 of them have a 0 in the standalone prescription drug plan only. Medicare Advantage, there's a lot of competition there, so there's a lot of different things going on now. I won't get too deep into that. Phase 2. Phase 2 is after you get past the deductible. It's a 0 deductible, you start there. This gets a little confusing. Copay phase by government rule says the insurance company is going to pay 75% of the cost of your drug, and you're going to pay 25% of the cost of your drug. That's their rule. Did I mention the government pays these guys pretty good? They want your business, particularly if you're a reasonably healthy person and you don't take a lot of expensive drugs. They really like working with you. They're going to go after you. So what do? They'll say, well, you know what? Your levothyroxine, we'll give it to you for free. Your lisinopril, give it to you for free. Which is not like they're giving you a whole lot because they're only like $2 without insurance. It's not like they're doing but you know, it sounds good, right? You know, I mean, Myers used to have all these drugs that you could get, like metformin and stuff like that, and atorvastatin for nothing. Why did they do that? Because you're going to get in the store and buy something else. I did that one time. That free drug cost me about $50.
About that.
Figure that out? So, anyway, a lot of those drugs in there, they're going to do better. And we're going to talk about the tiers here in a minute. But for right now, just understand that that is 75-25, but they're going to do better because they want your business. See that number where it said 4430? Okay, once the retail cost of your drugs, you heard me say retail, right? You didn't hear me say what you paid or the insurance company paid. The actual retail cost of your drug, when it reaches that amount, all of them together, that means you're going to go into that third phase. Now, when I started, that was called the donut hole. I have a tough time not calling it the donut hole because I'm old and I hate change. I have a tough time changing, but I'm really supposed to call it the coverage gap. The coverage gap is where you actually will start paying at 25%. So once the retail cost of your drugs go over 4,430, then you're going to be paying 25%. So let's give an example. Eliquis. I've seen tons of Eliquis this past year. Okay, it's for AFib. We've seen it on TV. That drug's like $550-ish a month. Okay, in phase 2, it would probably cost you about $45, $47, somewhere in that neighborhood. Once you got past the deductible, could pay for that. Okay, but at $500 or $600, you're going to get to that 4,000 mark. Generally, it's down somewhere around August, September, October. You're going to get to that amount, and then your prices go up, and you go, "What happened?" I mean, Chris and I keep getting these calls. "Oh, they didn't forgot about that. That's why they go. What happened?" We told you. We showed you. Now it's going to go up because you're now into the coverage gap. Okay, so that's when those drugs go up and you start paying a lot more for the cost of your drugs. Now that last phase is called the catastrophic phase. There was a rule they changed, I'm not sure how many years ago, and I really don't like it. And by the way, I don't remember, I've seen the number for that 4,000 something, what it is for next year, it's like 4,500 something. But you see that number, it says 7,050? It's like $7,500 next year. And this isn't what the retail cost of the drug is, it's what you actually pay. Really don't like that rule. It used to be the retail cost of the drug applied there, but now it doesn't, which means you're going to really get stuck with some nasty drug costs. If you have some really expensive stuff, it can start going really high at that point. If you do get into that catastrophic phase, now you're paying that Eliquis like $25. They're getting by really quite cheap. It's not bad, okay? But so you're bankrupt before you get there, but you know, it's going to be cheap at that point. If you're in a lower income bracket, and there's 7 different levels of lower income brackets, again, we're not going to go into much of that. It's called LIS, and there's different qualifications. If that's you, if you were in the lower income, you could start in that category. I don't think it's by anybody in this room. But if you are in a low income bracket, it could start in that. Okay? That's the fundamentals of the 4 phases. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah? Okay. So a couple of quick little things with that. LIS is low income subsidy. It could lower the cost of your premium for a drug plan, and it could also lower the cost and put you into that phase 4. IRMA, she mentioned it a little while ago, is the income related. So if your income is over certain levels, it could go up, and there's a penalty. And so I think is maybe your next 2 pages from now. Yeah, go 2 pages, then we're going to back up a page. I just added a new page. I did that to throw Crystal. There's a penalty if you do not have that credible coverage. Okay? If you don't have that credible coverage, you could end up with a 1% per month penalty the rest of your life. We're going to talk about tiers. So, my drugs, I've got arthritis, and I've got like my lisinopril and my folic acid, they're cheap. Okay? We're going to talk about the tiers of drugs, and then we're going to talk about this page. Tiers of drugs. There are fundamentally 5 tiers. Some companies have as many as 7. There we go. So tier 1 is going to be your cheap drugs. That's going to be your lisinopril. And virtually every company is saying, hey, we're going to give those to you free with no deductible. Tier 2 drugs, and most companies are saying they're still pretty cheap. These are your generic drugs. They might cost you $5. Nobody in here probably worries about $5. Now we start getting into tier 3 drugs. These are getting a little pricier. This is where And most companies put Eliquis. Now, each company can decide which tier they're gonna put their drugs in. So all mine are tier 1 and tier 2 drugs. But you start getting into tier 3, now you're probably gonna pay about $47 per month for the drugs. Then you get into tier 4, and oh my goodness, oh my soul, there it goes out down the hall. That's your money. That's one of those little nursery rhymes we did with our kids. Sorry. They start getting really expensive. They're generally going to be about 30% of the cost of that drug. That's tier 4 drugs. And tier 5 drugs, well, basically, if you're there goes the kid's inheritance. It's gone. Because now some people will call tier 5. They'll relabel it and they'll make that your free category. They'll put in there like about 3 or 4 dozen drugs that they're going to give you for free. And some of those companies are going to have tier 6 and 7 drugs, which get into. Those tend to be the drugs where the pharmacist has to mix it up there in this back room with a cauldron, buying some kind of witchy brew they're making. There's like 50,000 different drugs in this country. If you look at that list she's passed out, essentially there's about 32 common drugs, 3,200 drugs. But there's all kinds of special mixtures out there. That's when you start getting into the other really expensive types of drugs. Okay? So, the page that she passed out, I don't have a slide for that one, but I wanted you to see, get you an idea of what some companies' drug formularies might look like. Here's a company that has 3 different drug plans. This is a standalone prescription drug plan only. It's not something attached to a Medicare Advantage. And you can kind of see, they can move their drugs around to different tiers to fit the cost of the premium. So we'll move on to start talking about Medicare Part C. Medicare Part C is Medicare. It is not a supplement. Boom. Okay, that worked out good, didn't it? There it is. It's not a supplement. I have warned my clients, Rick, if I were to be your agent and you do a Medicare Advantage program that has a 0 premium, you refer somebody and then come in and say, hey, I want to do that 0 premium supplement like Rick's got, I'm going to fine you and slap you because I'm going, I tried to tell you it's not a supplement. I played pickleball with the buddies last week and I was listening to Tony sitting over to the side going, no, I got one of those 0 premium supplements. And Tony, for crying out loud. We were playing pickleball, otherwise I would have scolded you, but I did. So Medicare Advantage. There are 6 variations of Medicare Advantage. Okay? That's what the sheet you've got there is. What are the differences between those different types of plans? The most common one right now is HMO. If you'd asked me 12 years ago what I thought about a Medicare Advantage, I hated them. I absolutely hated them with a passion. I did them because it's what fit the person best, and as hard as I would try to get them to hear me, hey, you have to stay in the network. And so Dr. Tim says, Ron should go over here and see Dr. Rick. So he runs over there, Ron runs over here to Dr. Rick and doesn't ask. Hey, Dr. Rick, are you in my network? Well, he surely knows. He doesn't know. He probably doesn't even remember Rick's last name. So you have to ask if you're in an HMO, okay? To my surprise, and I only found this statistic last year, 62% of us aren't in HMOs. We've gotten better. That's one of the good things on Obamacare. They were primarily HMOs, and people got accustomed to the idea that Ron now is going to come over here to see Dr. Rick and go, hey, Dr. Rick, here's the insurance plan I have. Do you take that insurance before they do that? They're getting better. People still make mistakes, but they're getting better at it. HMOs tend to give you more, I call them foo-foo items. Whistles and bells, sparkly things. We're Americans. We'll buy anything that sparkles. So we dangle nice things out there. HMOs do a lot of that. So therefore, 62% of us go this direction, okay? Now, if you look across there, right next to that, it says HMO POS. That stands for Health Maintenance Organization with a point of service. That's kind of like between a PPO, which, by the way, I should use my little charts today. I didn't see these items up front. HMO says you have to check if your doctor is in the network. An HMO POS is in between a PPO and an HMO. PPO says you can see any doctor you want to see, but if you will see our preferred providers, we cut a deal with Dr. Tim, and he'll give you a little better price because we've got a deal with him, okay? So HMO POS is kind of between these two, as we'll get coverage with the POS, but it's still going to be like digging a dagger out of your back, and it's still going to be kind of expensive. So PPO, I thought that's what I was going to see is doing 62%, but they don't have as many sparkling things with PPOs. And it's the ones that tend to have a premium of $12 to $19, $22, some small amount, which is almost incidental, and you don't get as many food items. Okay, so you got HMO POS. I talked about the PPO over on the right side. The SNP stands for Special Needs Programs. Those tend to be people who have both Medicare and Medicaid, i.e., we're talking about welfare. Their programs are amazing. They are fantastic. We talk about getting some foo-foo items. Holy cow. I mean, you get like $3,000 for dental, cover everything, and back it up with $1,000 debit card in case you have other miscellaneous expenses that go with it. Thousands of dollars for hearing aids, and they're just really outstanding programs. But you have to qualify by being low income. There's also some that are special needs, like if you have certain chronic illnesses. Unfortunately, we don't have any of those in this county. There's one down in Hamilton County. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I'm contracted with it, but I wouldn't suggest one. I mentioned a little while ago that wherever I put my Medicare card, that's fee for service. These started in 2006. Almost all of them were PFSs, private fee for service. What the government was doing essentially was just taking Medicare and outsourcing it to an insurance company to be the administrator. They were paying them, you be the administrator of it. And actually dropped Medicare's costs over 20% in a matter of years. Instead of, at one point, they were at $1,200 per month for your care. It dropped down to under $1,000 for your care, okay? And the last thing I want to bring up in the middle, it talks about MSA. So we talked about HSA. We understand what that is. HSA is I take money, I put it into a bank account like I would an IRA. That money's there for my health care. I don't get the money I put in there, I don't get taxed on it. And HSA, I take it out, I don't get taxed on it. Well, that's the concept here. Once you start, remember I said once you start Medicare A and or B, you can no longer contribute to an HSA, but you can get an MSA. Difference is you can't put a dime in it. The government puts money into a piggy bank for you and says, we'll still give you the Medicare adjusted rates for whatever event you're doing, but you're going to manage, you're going to be the administrator of all that. It's a good idea, it's a decent idea if you're a healthy person. If you have any kind of health issues going on with anything, no, it's a bad idea. Well, I'm one of the few people in the state that actually have access to that and do that one, but you got to look long and hard at that one before you do it. I almost did it myself this past year. My problem is there's no drug plan in those, and I'd had to do drugs separately, and a standalone drug plan was going to cost me $1,000, eating up half the money they gave me. Didn't think it was hardly worth it. Okay, so those are your basic styles of plans. All those that are up there. Before we move on to that, I'm going to do this page.